welcome back to the channel. Have you ever heard of James Popsys? Well, James is one of those photographers I keep coming back to on YouTube. And recently his video Thin Glass was really interesting. It made me realize just how aligned our views on photography are. Although of course we take a few different roads to get there. So I thought it would be fun to dig into how I see myself as a photographer compared to James and where we overlap or part ways. Now, James has two big mantras in his photography. He likes to take photos about things, not just of things. He also lives by this thin glass idea, which, don't worry, I'll get into in a second. As for me, I've got a pretty simple mantra myself. I want to capture scenes as naturally as they unfold before me. But back to James and this thin glass concept. And it's actually a neat metaphor. It's all about how lenses can shape what we capture. And James is all about using glass or lenses that gets out of the way as much as possible. So he likes focal lengths that represents how James sees the world. It's like he's saying, don't let the gear do the talking and just let the scene speak for itself. And I get that, and I'm totally with him, but here's where we see things a bit differently. So we see the world in two different focal lengths. So James sees it in, what you would call a more normal focal length, while I tend to see the world through a slightly wider lens. So it's like we're standing at the same window, but I'm leaning back a bit just to get that wider view. Now, James also has this idea that his photos should look like scenes you might come across on a casual walk. And that resonates with me. I want you to feel like you could have been there too, just wandering along and stumbling upon the same spot. But here's the twist. I don't just want you to see it. I want you to feel what I felt. That crisp breeze, that soft light. I want those emotions to seep into the image, so it's not just a picture but a memory. So James has his heart set on the interaction between man-made structures and nature. For me, I don't really have such a thing. I want to capture scenes where I find a connection. The subjects in a scene can pretty much vary. So we both agree on one thing, and that is photography isn't just about catching golden hour light, because life doesn't get lived through that 1 hour, right? So why should photography? James talks about shooting at all times of the day in all kinds of weather, and I couldn't agree more. Cloudy, sunny, rainy, whatever. I'm there for it because that's how we experience the world. It's like nature doesn't wait for the ideal lighting, so why should we as photographers? Now, James and I have slightly different perspective when it comes to focus. So James says we don't really see the world in full focus like in those perfectly sharp focus stacked shots. And I get his point, but I also think we don't walk around with a nice bokeh in the background either. When you focus on something, you usually have a good sense of what's around it. So for me, I like to keep most things in focus because that's how I see the world myself. One more thing James does is he shoots most of his photos from head height. So he's standing as he normally would and just picks his camera up to his eyes. And that is how we normally see the world, and honestly it makes sense. But here's where I like to mix things up. While I do shoot from eye level, sometimes I want to get low or high just to get a fresh perspective. I mean, a kid sees the world differently from an adult, so why not capture that perspective? And James's idea of photographing scenes that make him curious, I totally agree, but for me, I also want to capture something that evoke emotions. So that is the tricky part, making a viewer feel something through a still image. It's not the most easy thing to do, but when you nail it, it's absolutely gold. So at the end of the day, both James and I are all about photographing those everyday moments that most people might overlook. Now, photography doesn't have to be about hiking a grand mountain at a sunrise or walking around a packed city and taking street shots. Sometimes it's about finding beauty in the mundane, in the moments we live day in and day out. And honestly, that is where I find the most happiness in photography. So if you have liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And with that, that's it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye for now.